How's everybody doing? All right, so I'm Todd. I am incredibly honored to share the stage with Ashley Schapiro this morning, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for American Eagle Outfitters.
That's a lie.
That's
I
a
am
lie?
not the chief marketing officer.
All right, you're close enough.
He's my boss, and he's a great
Oh,
dude.
he's your boss,
but,
okay.
I'm vice president of marketing, media, performance, and engagement. Right there. This is kicking off good.
All right. So I got to check my facts first.
We love Craig.
All right,
and
cool.
I just got promoted, so that's awesome.
There you. Well, listen, I do my best. So, listen, we're in the new year. We're going to try and mix it up, try and get the energy levels back up. It's nice and quiet. I like it. So, in the new year, and I don't know how long you can say Happy New Year for, but New Year's resolutions. What do you got?
Be more present.
Okay.
I feel, and it's very relevant to our conversation, when I'm at work, when I'm with my kids, I'm always doing 86 different things, and I really have been trying to be more present. That even means like when I'm watching a TV show, I try to leave my phone in the other room. It is an exercise. Try it.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Especially when you want to know what happens at the end or you're looking up a character. All right, so...
Use your brain.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So as we talk about the new year, you and I were both at CES last week, 2 weeks ago, however, it seems like a year ago. You were just telling me that you had the opportunity to sit down with 1,500 students to talk about retail and all that good jazz. So what kind of advice do you give to kids who are just getting into the industry?
Okay, we're going to fact check you again.
Oh, boy.
Guys,
Oh,
this is not good. On Friday,
Oh, it's Friday.
it was for NRF.
NRF.
It's okay. It's all the same family. I think it was like 1,500 college students who came, and I sat down on a panel with them, and I was telling Todd, you get off the stage and you have your first glimpse of what it would be like to be a celebrity, because they bum rush you, like, oh my God, how'd you get where you are? And like, I want to know everything and you're like, I don't. It just sort of happened. But it was a really exciting experience. But the advice that I would give them, let's see. Number one, be present where you are. Don't worry, it'll come. Kind of enjoy the ride. Two, if you're not saving lives, don't treat work like you are saving lives. That's a big one, because we all make mistakes, and you gotta just let it go, because you did not kill anyone. You just missed the sales of a couple pairs of jeans. Three, just say yes. And I learned that from another leader in another organization from Chipotle, and he said, just say yes. And it's a really good thing. And just say yes is about taking risks in your career. It's about learning new things. It's about meeting people. It's about trying. Just say yes is a big one. And then there was a fourth. Oh, only work with good people. That is something I really believe in. I have a very strict no asshole policy on my team. Surround yourself with people you like. It makes work that much better. There's going to be tough days, and it's much better to do that and be in the thick of it with people who make you laugh and smile. That's good stuff.
I love that. I love that. So in the theme of just say yes, testing, new technology, the evolution of retail, all of that good stuff that plays into what we do on a daily basis, your brands have been known to really push the envelope on testing and going into new mediums. And social, obviously, is a huge component to what you folks do. So when you're making those decisions on when to say yes, what are some of the criteria that you consider? What are the things that you think about? What's important to you before you say yes?
Well, everything you do should have an objective. And that could be, a non-tangible data-based objective, but everything has to have an objective. So I would address each of those differently, each initiative. But I'd say there's 4 real things that it has to ladder up to, on top of being brand right, of course, and brand safety and all those things. I think as the number one jeans brand for men and women, ages 15 to 25, and women of all ages, you do have this responsibility to make sure you're showing up in a brand safe way. That's different than some other brands. This is the youth of the world, and you have a responsibility. But I would say there's 4 things. So one, is it where our customers are spending their time? Number one, first and foremost. And as you have conversations about things like metaverse and all of the stuff, I would give that advice to any brand. Just because your friends are doing it doesn't mean that you should do it. So make sure it's where your customer is. So that's 1. 2 would be sales. And an example of that is, Snap AR, Meta AR. We did a bunch of that in 22. I want to say we did about $2.8 million in sales just from AR, and that's about $800K more than the year prior. So sales, of course, would be one. Can I make money? Two, can I reach a new customer? So doing testing with Google. A recent test we just did, and I don't even have the results, to be honest, was looking at what are the products that we use to acquire customers the most? What do they convert most with? And really doing it as a holdout group to only do paid search from a branded and non-branded perspective to acquire with those keywords only. So that's two. Can I reach somebody new? I would say three would be engagement. Of course, engagement is a metric that all brands are really interested in. So Roblox, great example. So from, Roblox, no, let's not go with Roblox. I'm gonna use that for something else. Let's go with Sound On. So TikTok, Sound On, we were the first brand to participate in Sound On, which is a pool of TikTok creators who are musicians who've not been signed. They're up and coming because they do not have deals yet. So we worked with Catherine Lee to create a custom song. We did a hashtag challenge. It had 2.3 billion views. It was our best hashtag ever, and 20 million shares. 20 million shares, that's an engagement metric I like. And then the fourth one is just doing relevant, cool shit, to be very honest. So something like that would be Roblox. That's a test and learn. We want to do cool stuff to test and learn. If our customer is there, just because they're there doesn't mean they want to participate with a brand in that space. Roblox for us has been extremely successful, but it really was about just that in the beginning. And currently we're the second brand behind Gucci in terms of visits with about 45 million. So those are the four.
And the people playing can afford you and not Gucci. So the question then becomes, when you're talking about these engagements, and especially some of these new mediums, you talk about those objectives, you talk about engagement, you're talking about metrics. How are you tying those back to actual sales? And how do you tie that back to revenue? What are the metrics that you're really looking at that, okay, we tested, now we've seen this as a successful partnership, now we're going to invest a lot more and make this kind of a forever partnership?
Yeah, I mean, the monetization or the commercialization of new technology is tough. Like, it is a tough thing, and if you're my CFO right now, we have this conversation once a week. I would say a few things. So number one, we use Newstar, which is an MMM and MCA model. I'm sure many people are familiar with it. So I would say that is kind of our bread and butter in terms of what we do to see results and really make sure it's driving whatever objective it is. So if that's ROAS, if it's profitability, whatever the case may be. But with that being said, there should be an art and science to every single thing you do. If you are sitting with a bunch of marketers who are looking at MMM and MTA data in like a little room with nothing else around them in a silo, it's not going to perform, right? We all know there's what I call this to marketing that's really, really important. So I would say it's a combination of those two things. And then you think about your team with that, because it's important that you have art and science in every room. If you just bring the data guys or girls into the room, you're going to get a very different answer than if you have the art. So when those two teams kind of engage together and come to a happy medium, I think that's the answer.
That's interesting, and especially because we're in an age now where a lot of the big players in the market are heading more towards those metric-based models, the econometric models. They're taking the art out of what is taking place. So I want to get your opinion on that. The lack of transparency into some of these models, some of the history that goes into MMM that may not account for some of those new mediums. So when you're looking at all of that stuff, what are your thoughts on all of that?
It's really hard. So an example would be influencer.
Yep.
And Newstar, I love you, but just to support the truth. Influencer is not captured in there, right? And we all know that influencer is becoming a bigger and bigger line item on all of our budgets. For me, it is very, very high. In any given season, I'm working with about 650 influencers, and that's from your top celebrity down to your nanos. How do you then account for that and then use MMM and MTA as your source of truth? And I think that's really where the art has to come in. So I don't have a solid answer because I just don't think there's a truth to it. But again, if you think about everything you're doing and there's different objectives to it, everything's objective is not going to be ROAS. It's not going to be sales. That's just not reality. I try to think of, I have a few analogies that I use with my team that are super inappropriate. So one is when I think of upper funnel marketing, it's vitamins, and performance marketing is crack. So if you just only take crack, eventually you're going to die. But, truth. So you need the vitamins. You need the vitamins to keep your brand going. And I feel like that's a really good analogy when we're thinking about some of this stuff, because some of it just can't be measured today. Like vitamins, do they really work? I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely take them every single day. So make sure you're fueling your brand. Make sure you're doing it. Eventually, we're going to find out that vitamins work for us. I might have lost some of you on this analogy, but
No, I actually love it. I'm following it
it
perfectly.
really does. It does work.
All right, so taking vitamins, upper funnel. When we talk about your core demo, Gen Z, you're talking about history here, a generation that it is virtually impossible to keep their attention. So how are you combating that? What are the ways in which you're thinking about engaging with that, core demographic, and really, what has you super excited?
When you think about Gen Z, you really did nail it on its head, because the power of the phone, this little device sitting next to me, and they're the first digitally and social native generation out there. So they have something that majority of the people in this room, including myself, didn't even know existed. They're inundated with content, with brands, with social platforms. I mean, what's happening today? What's happening tomorrow? I have no idea. It's hard to keep up. Be real, this, that, right? So you really do need to make it count. And when I think about how we go after it, there's kind of 3 words that we live and breathe by. Present, relevant, nimble. I say it all the time. So being present is about being where your customer is spending their time. And where that kind of counteracts with nimble and where those are connected is that changes like a lot, right? So that Be Real example, one day Be Real didn't exist. The next day you're walking through Main Street in your town and every kid at the same time is taking a picture. And you're like, what is that? What are they doing? Why? So being where your customer is spending your time, and Gen Z specifically. That could be gaming. It could be many things. Relevant. You gotta show up in a relevant way. 40-something-year-old soccer mom, I should not be creating content. It's not going to be relevant for them. So it has to be the right content. It has to be platform native. TikTok is an example. Our TikTok platform native content, usually creator-led, I want to say it performs like 85% better from a viewership rate than when we use branded content. Don't quote me on that, but it's high. So really showing up in a relevant way. So again, that should be, if you're on Twitch, show up with gaming content, show up with music content, and it has to integrate into your brand. It has to be right for American Eagle. There's places where it just doesn't make sense to talk about jeans, so don't. And then that nimble piece on the end, as I said, you need to be ready to shift on a dime. If a new technology comes out and your customer is in a place where it makes sense for you to be, your team can rally around it, your CFO approves it, all of this stuff, you gotta be ready to make a shift. Things change all the time.
Okay, I love it. So as things shift, and hopefully I'm going to redeem myself. So CES, lots of new tech.
That was in Las Vegas.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
the floor at NRF, lots of new stuff going on. Are you seeing any trends? Are you seeing anything new that you're like, that's really interesting. I would love to see that develop a little bit more. You'd mentioned Web3, you mentioned Metaverse and Roblox and all these other engagements. Is there anything else that's like, this could be pretty interesting if they develop a little further?
Do you want me to say chat GBT? Is that what you want me to say?
I don't want you to say it, but
I'm not going to say it.
All right.
Okay. I'm very interested in the snoring pillow. I don't know about anybody else, but like that's number 1 for me. If anyone saw the snoring pillow, I see you. You're like, oh, what's that? Very interesting. You sleep on it and it stops your snoring. I don't think there's one specific item. I think just as an overarching trend, I think more engaging, more immersive shopping experiences are where it's at. And that could be, new portal technology, it could be RFID, it could be ChatGPT and something along those lines. But I just think how you bring products to customers, especially as we think of Gen Z and even moving into Gen Alpha, really has to continue to evolve and merge with technology. How do you give them more? What's the reason for going into a store? Yes, you can touch, you can feel fabric. I love to shop personally. But what is it? How do you make it more immersive? How do you bring your brand to them in a more engaging way than ever before?
Yeah, I love that you said that. So Toys R Us was up here a little while ago. And these kids will never know what real retail therapy is by walking through the aisles of Toys R Us and screaming that you want something. And so, being a unique retailer in the fact that you have the eye on the prize with your demographic of Gen Z, you've got kind of your digital landscape mapped out. You know where they are, what they're doing, where they're spending their time, and how to engage with them on those different platforms. How are you extending that into the in-store experience? And are you finding that the online customer is very different than the in-store customer? Talk to us about that.
So I think we all as marketers think omni, I hope. If you don't, we're in trouble. You should all be thinking omni, right? So in certain respects, parts of your brand need to show up consistently across the channels. I do believe that. What we really found through pandemic, when we of course all saw the shift in the channels, is post-pandemic, those original places where those people like to shop, they sort of reverted back to. People who are store customers, once again, wanted to go back to the store. People who were digital only went to digital. Obviously, new acquisition, et cetera, shifted all of that, but people definitely had a pattern. I think it's less about the type of customer, personally, I don't have any facts for this, than the experience you're offering. And you really only named 2 channels, but there's truly so much more now. And we talk about this a lot as an organization. The role of the channels is something I think everybody really needs to think about. I like to sometimes self-market because it's tangible for everybody. And we all go to different stores and like different things. But your reason for going into a store is very different for buying online versus shopping on TikTok, shopping on Insta, shopping on Snap, shopping in Roblox, shopping in the metaverse, all these different places, shopping through a creator, right? Everyone's seen something that their favorite creator did, and then they bought it right away. So I think it's less about the type of person than what they're looking for in the experience. You may know that you like to buy, hypothetically, American Eagle athletic skinny fits in like a regular length size.
You nailed me.
TBD, I knew that was you. In like a dark blue, non-destroyed. So it's very easy. You just go on the app, you shop, you buy, you're done. I like to buy my groceries online. I just push reorder on Whole Foods and it comes. But sometimes I like to go to the grocery store because I want to try something different and I want to touch it and I want to feel it. So I think it's more about that. I think it's more about the role than the person.
Okay. Yes, I can see that. And so when you talk, you mentioned the pandemic and behaviors.
Yes.
Have you seen any fundamental shifts in long-lasting behaviors as a result of the pandemic, or have people just gone back to the way that they were?
In terms of the channels, for us as a brand, we have seen people revert back to their original channels. I think that I see it more internally than externally. I think it's changed the way we as a team interact and operate together. I think we've become much faster because you sort of realize maybe you didn't need to have 86 meetings and 46 sign-offs and all this stuff. We've learned how to shift much more quickly. And quite frankly, I think for me, I got to know my team so much better because it sort of eliminated these closed door meetings. So you'd be like, oh, hey, can Sally come to the meeting? Yeah, sure, bring Sally, whatever. So you kind of got to interact with people in a different way than you did before, where maybe meetings were slightly more hierarchical previously.
All right, so I love that, and it's a perfect segue.
You love everything I say, Todd.
I do. I'm a really good kiss ass. It's how I'm in sales. It's how I operate. So when you talk about your team and the no asshole rule, which, again, something I absolutely abide by. Unfortunately, you get a couple who come in every once in a while. But how do you build your team? What are you looking for when you start bringing in good folks? What really is the secret sauce to building out a fantastic team of people that you obviously enjoy working with and they actually get the job done?
I think that when you are looking at a team, sometimes the culture and the people and the how you're going to fit all those parts together is a bit of a puzzle, right? You can't have 10 Todds in a room. I would imagine that's a lot.
It's way too
Yeah.
much. People here don't even want
Or
one.
10 Ashleys,
Yes.
right? Same thing. So I do think when you're building a team, you need to think about how the parts fit together, both in terms of their strengths. You need people who complement you, right? I don't need somebody who knows the same exact thing as me. I want people who are going to be able to add to one another. All of those people, the art and the science sitting together in a room is what makes it work. So I would say that's part one. Well, part one is no asshole. Part two is this. I think the other piece, I love to work with people who like to break things like me. We like to break things in an educated way. So break things is trying, testing, learning, not being scared to fail. You need to be comfortable with that. And just say, you know what, we tested it, we learned it, we had all the data reasons to do it, and it didn't work. So I like people like that. And then lastly, I like people who like to learn from each other, not just from reading. I like people who like to learn by doing.
Okay, so you have been very vocal. No, not crazy. You've been very vocal about mentoring and mentorship programs and all of that good stuff that had to have come from someplace in your past. Did you have a mentor? Did you have someone that you kind of looked up to, took you under their wing, kind of showed you the ropes, told you what not to do? Because he can tell you what to do, but the important lessons are what not to do. Who was that in your life?
I've had many, so I'm not going to name all of them. I think at different stages in your career and in your personal life, you need different mentors for different things. In the beginning of your career, you need somebody who's going to help you kind of get in there and say, you could do it. And then you need the person who helps you make the leap to say, I'm ready to make a change. So I think at different stages, I've had different people. But I will tell you one story. When I first joined American Eagle, I had come from Coach. I'd been there for, 9.5 years. And I had just had my second child. And Kyle Andrew was the CMO. She hired me. If you don't know her, you should. She's wonderful. And we were sitting in her office, just having a team meeting, and she said, just so you know, at 4 o'clock, I'm not going to be available for the rest of the day. I'm going to my daughter's volleyball game. And I was like, oh, what? And afterwards, she pulled me aside and kind of said, like, why are you being so weird? I said, I have never worked for somebody who gave permission to have a life outside of these 4 walls and say, I'm not going to physically be here, but I'm not going to be on my phone, I'm not going to be in email, I'm not going to be on text because I'm actually going to be present with my daughter, which is totally normal, by the way. And that, for me, she has been an amazing mentor for me in a different way to show me that it is okay to have teams and to encourage people to have lives. And that's what makes them wonderful, is not just what they do at work, it's what they do in their personal life. That could be family, that could be, I don't know, they do karate, whatever, I have no idea. But she, for me, has been really critical in terms of how I've been able to grow as a leader and lead teams, but also for my own life, being a mother with 2 children and the pandemic and having all these things. She's been really powerful for me.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Father of 3, mother of 2. How do you juggle? How do you make it work? And how do you be present? Do you have any hard, fast rules that you've made, that you've discussed with AE and that are just your terms? I need to be here for this, and as a result, you've got the relationship that you do with your kids, which you told me is fantastic. I'll ask them later.
They're pretty good. I don't think I have any hard, fast rules. I think it's been more about setting boundaries and being comfortable with it. So I would say, number one, Most of us work from home a lot of the time. For myself as well as my team, you are at home, your kids live there, so it is very normal that they are going to appear. I never understand when people are like, shh, and you're like, but they live there. I don't understand. So that for me is one that I'm very comfortable with. I want my team to know, I have a girl on my team who has a newborn. Every once in a while, she has to pick up the baby. I mean, it's there. So I think that's one for me that I want everyone to be comfortable with, and my team is too. And I'm very lucky that Craig, who we mentioned earlier, who's amazing, he's also really great with it. He's like, hey, Lily, how you doing? How was school? So I think that's one. Two, for me, dinner time is dinner time. No phones at the dinner table. It's a rule. That's a rule. And then, you got to balance it. The reality is, you can't go to a dinner every night. You can, but that's just not who I want to be. Like tonight, I'm not going to dinner because I have something tomorrow night, and I want to be there. So I wouldn't say there's steadfast rules, and the advice I would give on that is you're going to have days when you're winning as mom, and you're going to have days when you're winning at work, but very rarely do those two things happen on the same day.
Preach.
So it's about the sum of the parts.
100%.
This is all about it all working out.
100%. All right, so we're about to close up. I want to open the floor to some questions from the audience. Before we do that, it is NRF. It's the evolution of retail. Anything from American Eagle Outfitters that we should be looking for this year? Anything that you're super excited that you'd like to promote to everybody here, other than the discount code you're going to give us all?
What I would say about us as a brand is really double click into it. I think sometimes people associate it with a brand that they knew growing up and things like that. The brand has evolved in so many ways, and I'm so proud of the work we've done as a marketing organization, but also from a product perspective. I'm really proud of that. And the other component to that is it really is accessible for everybody, and I think that's important. You should be able to see yourself in a brand and feel comfortable in it, comfortable engaging with it, and proud that you're wearing it. So that would be the piece. In terms of what I'm excited about, I definitely can't tell you. So I would say follow, watch, listen, all of the things.
All right, and I'll have my Gen Z kids do that.
Please do.
So first of all, thank you for joining us. Certainly I want to open it up to the crowd, and as we're waiting for a question, and please raise your hand. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
This has been really great. Your career is a pretty interesting one, having developed American Eagle overseas and then come in U.S. and stateside. It's pretty inspiring stuff. So really, yeah, really, really cool stuff. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. We're back. There's new people, so who are you? Are you
Super awesome Epic Games. I'm curious to know more about your Lightopia Roblox integration. I guess the question would be, if you had like 3 top tips for brands that are looking to invest in Roblox, what would they be?
Thanks for this. So I would say, number one, make sure your customer is actually there. I think that's a huge piece. Don't just do it again because your friends are doing it. I would say number two, be comfortable with the fact that your objective right away should not be sales, because as we all know, the commercialization of that, you're welcome, the commercialization of that has not really come to fruition. And then 3, create an experience that's consistent with who your brand is. So when we first launched on Livetopia, it was during our Members Always campaign. And the idea of that was everyone was welcome. And we really created this environment in Livetopia that replicated our campaign. And then all of our clothes, everything we did was free, as opposed to charging, because we wanted everyone to be able to participate in it. And as a parent, I'm sure I'm constantly giving Robux all the time. We didn't want to have to do that. So just make sure it's consistent with who you are as a brand. Just because you're in the metaverse or whatever we're calling it today, you shouldn't feel so different. It should feel special, and it should feel relevant to Roblox, but it should still feel like you.
And quick clarification, because you added like 2 things. Do you work for a place called Super Awesome and, or you just, is that your like disclaimer, like, oh, by the way, here I am, I'm super awesome, and I work for...
No, actually, it's called Super Awesome. We're owned by Epic Games.
Got it. Okay, Okay, thank you. Because I was like, this is the second time now. Hold on a second.
He's just semi-awesome.
Yeah, right? I was going to say, like, the jury's still out. It's an early day. Let's not sure. Super awesome. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much. Couple quick takeaways. Amazing job. Number one, I agree. You cannot have more than one of you two in the room, but not because it'd be too much. It'd be unfair for the other brand. So that's number one. Number two, I appreciate you also continuing. Everyone should see myself. So when my oldest daughter says, like, no, you don't even need to come in the store with me, Dad, or like, what are you doing? Thinking that's like, I can't wait to be like, actually, talk to Ashley, and I can look at it and try on whatever I want. So thank you.
Do you?
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much.